Alright, hey, what's up guys? Coach Matt, Play Fast Football. Today, going to take a little bit of a look at learning how to pressure, right? So, learning how to play when you are pressuring, and we'll talk a little bit about, what everybody labels as a blitz or a pressure or things like that. But I want to talk specifically today about moving and getting kids to learn how to play when they move. Make sure you check out some of our partners, GameStrat, sideline replay company we use. If you're looking for highly reliable, highly affordable, make sure you check out GameStrat. Great customer service. I've had some issues on a game day a couple years ago, and I made a call on Friday, and they answered the call, got back to me, fixed the issue immediately. So great customer service, great customer support, awesome product. Check out GameStrat. Dome Hats, a headwear company we use with Bishop Kenny High School, Play Fast Football. This is one of my custom Crusader Bishop Kenny fitted hats. If you're looking for custom hats, check them out. You can build your own hat on their hat builder online, or you can give somebody in their creative team your logo, let them build something for you. Dome hats, custom, because stock hats suck. Baker Sporting Goods, company we use for coaches' shirts like this. All right, our sideline gear that we wear on game night, our uniforms are distributed from them. You could have fan stores built with Baker Sports. It's your one-stop shop for everything you need for your program. They're also in the shoulder pad world now with pro gear, and they are also big in the baseball market. Check out Baker Sports. Just Play Football, which is the playbook software we use. We use it for our installs, playbooks. We use it in our game plan meetings. We use their presentation mode. It's the best play drawing tool on the market. I use it on my Patreon site. I use it if I'm going to speak at any clinics. Make sure you check out Just Play. DifferenceUSA Ultimate Striking Machine. Get thousands of reps. You don't need a partner. You don't have to teach somebody how to hold a hand shield, hold a dummy, provide resistance. They go right on the racks in your weight room so you can get work done all year round. DifferenceUSA machine, elbows in, thumbs up. If you want to strike violently, you've got to practice striking violently. All right, so one of the things that we struggle with is when we pressure blitz, okay, and what's the difference? Well, some people would say a blitz is 6-man, a pressure is 5-man. All right, a simulated blitz would be showing pressure from one side, but then blitzing from the other side. But it wouldn't be necessarily a blitz; it would be a sim pressure. But at the same time, it may not be a sim pressure, because if a pressure is sending 5 and you only send 4, it's a simulated rush, not a simulated pressure, right? So all that terminology stuff is really, to me, it's kind of irrelevant. As long as everybody knows what you're talking about, okay, then we can all get on the same page with what we're trying to discuss. Within your own program, I think that terminology makes a lot of sense. But, to me, there's really, call a blitz what you want, call a pressure what you want. All right, call a rush or whatever it is, call it what you want, okay, as long as your kids and your coaching staff knows what you're talking about. Or if you're speaking at a clinic, as long as everybody knows what you're talking about, then it really doesn't matter what you call it. So for us, if we are pressuring, right, 5-man, 6-man pressures. I don't talk blitzes a lot. One of the reasons I don't talk blitzes a lot is when you use the word blitz. In high school, to me, one of the things I think is kids right away think that you have to sack the quarterback because you're blitzing. We talk pressures more like we're trying to pressure the offense into making mistakes. We're trying to pressure the offense to do some things wrong so we can get tackles for losses, or we can generate positive plays, explosive plays on defense. All right, so when we're talking right now, we're talking about a 5-man pressure. All right, just a standard America's path. Okay, so we're going to long stick from the front side. We're going to bring the Mike behind it in the B-gap, the Sam off the edge. We're going to work the nose away. We're going to work the 4-eye. The weak side 4-eye away. We're going to create that standard, all right, America's zone blitz. We play 3 under, 3 deep behind it. We have other 5-man pressures that we play 4 under, 2 deep behind it. We have 5-man pressures that we play man free. So we play some different coverage structures behind it. But today I want to talk about the movement and how we can get kids to play a little bit better while moving. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I think we all make as coaches is when we install pressures, blitzes, we always talk about the path. And we always talk about, hey, this is this path. Hey, this week we're going to wrinkle this path. We're going to come up with a new path. And then a lot of times when we teach them, at least I know I do, and I didn't invent it, so I know, I got it from other people, but you blitz on cans or you blitz on a spacer, to where when you're showing the path with the kids, you set up formations with skill players so that you can line your coverages up, and then on the interior you have garbage cans, or you have a spacer, or you have something that identifies the gaps so that your guys can, when you're teaching it, all right, or you're walking through it, it's, hey, let's go through this path on these cans. Make sure your A gap, your B gap, your C gap. Well, the problem with that is when you actually go to play the game of football, offensive players don't stand still. So all those gaps that are part of the path that you have to understand the gap that you are moving to, that gap is going to move. And when it moves, we have to be able to react while we're moving. All right. So what ends up happening is you constantly teach this path as blitz on cans or you know, in your chalk talk walk, however you want to look at it. And in the game, when teams start running, so let's say right now we're looking at like a GT bash theory, right? So a team's going with an outside run away from pullers, all right? So the pullers are pulling backside for counter, and we're going with an outside run to the front side. Well, what ends up happening is when, a lot of times for us in the tight front, when we see counter schemes, a lot of people will block back to the 4-eye. Well, the 4-eye is moving inside anyways. So now the center blocks back, and they're pulling the guard and tackle. Well, the Mike linebacker, when we teach the blitz, when we blitz on cans, his path is always in the B gap like that, right? Well, now that he's getting GT counter away, his B gap is moving away from him. So now that as he blitzes and they block back on the 4-eye, where the Mike can make a play in this blitz is as he blitzes the B gap and the B gap goes away from him, he's not the edge of the blitz, all right? He doesn't have quarterback contain responsibilities, okay? He becomes a chase player, right? So now when he blitzes through the B gap, instead of taking his original track, as he blitzes, if he realizes that his B gap is moving and he's getting pullers away, he should flatten and chase the pullers, right? So his initial path takes him through the B gap, but now that B gap starts to change when the tackle and the guard pull away from him, right? So now you got to realize that when you get that, instead of just normally for us, what we get, we make this mistake early in every season. Blitz on cans, teach the path, that's the path, and this is what it looks like, right? When kids go to blitz. Because that's the path you've always sent me on, that's the path I've always done in install, that's the path I run pre-practice blitz on cans. But that path is going to change based on what the offense is doing, right? So now, you know, it's the same thing with the guys on the other side. If the nose is moving, the nose has a new visual key, that's the guard. The nose has to understand what the guard's doing because he's working that A-gap, but that A-gap's going to move on him. So the nose can't just stay in a standard path through an A-gap. The 4-eye that long sticks, his visual key becomes the guard. If the guard is out, I've got to cross the guard's face because that's now where the A-gap is, right? The A-gap is now moving towards me, so I've got to be able to cross the guard's face. But if the guard goes away from me, I got to try and squeeze as hard as I can, okay? And then it's up to you as a coach if you try to, because of the pressure, if you try to hump the block of the center when you're pressuring, or if you just try to get the end backside skinny in the A-gap where he belongs, all right, versus the pullers. That's up to you as a coach how you try to recreate numbers because they're adding 2 bodies to this side. Well, if we're pressuring from this side and they're adding 2 bodies over there, somehow we've got to add 1 or 2 bodies. Now, the way we could do that is our 3-hole player, all right, when he sees pullers, all right, as long as you're getting, he doesn't have 3 vertical, right? So his 3 actually arc release here, but he took pullers. So if we read him on under keys and told him that anytime he gets pullers, he can fit with pullers, well, we can gain a body there. We've already got a 2-seam dropper that's on this side, all right? And now the Mike versus the pull path, if he chases, that's how we're going to recreate bodies, right? So when you start to move and you start to pressure, you have to understand what is happening when you start to move, right? So one of the other ones that we use, right, is we'll try and get 2 off the edge, all right? So if we can get it to the backside, that would be great, but we'll try and get 2 off the edge. Well, we'll run a similar path inside, but we'll try and get 2 of our guys coming off the edge. All right, so we'll run the same similar pattern here, but now we're going to go 2 off the edge, all right, and the Mike has what we call tooth or tail. All right, so what that means for the Mike is if he sees the face of the tackle, he's going to cross face. If he sees the tail of the tackle, he's going to chase the tail of the tackle because really the first guy off the edge becomes that B-gap player. All right, so when you're using a 2 off the edge theory, you know that you're going to have a chase, spill B-gap player, right, because you're bringing another guy off the edge. All right, so when you use this type of theory and you get zone runs, and this happened to us earlier in the year, if you get a zone run that starts to work its way this way, the player that's off the edge, all right, if you get used to him blitzing on cans and blitzing on paths, all right, and you get used to him, hey, this is my path, this is my path. Well, now when he gets zone read, if you don't work the movement of the tooth or tail action, and now the tackle blocks down, his path is actually that. He becomes that chase player. He's going to close out that dive look, right? He's going to close out that zone look. So if you do it on cans and you just work the path always ends up like that. Right, so sometimes we've got to be able to talk to our kids about movement, right? And when we get movement now, it's not just a blitz on a can, it's a blitz on a body that's actually moving. Okay, so like the nose is blitzing, the nose is moving to that A-gap. Well, if they start running zone and the center starts working that way, the A-gap is now actually a little bit wide. But if I blitzed on a can or I moved on a can, the nose would do this every time. Right, so instead of that path, now it's an A-gap with a move, with a center working towards you on zone. Now it might be a wider track, right? So I think sometimes when we talk all about paths and blitz on cans and we work on all these different paths, all right, the first thing that we got to understand, at least for us, is we carry, any given week, we carry 7 to 8 pressure paths that we are going to run. We usually carry 3 fronts, usually carry at least 2 from each front, and then I pick a third. So what I try to do is, it's not so much the pass as it is, I try to carry 2 3 under 3 deeps, 2 4 under 2 deeps. I try to carry a 0. I try to carry a hot or a 2 under 3 deep, and I try to carry a man free. So I'm trying to carry enough answers with different coverages behind them. So when we go into our game plan, my defensive line coach, my linebacker coach, they always want to know what the paths are that week because they want to make sure their kids know. Okay, but the bigger deal is, based on whatever the path is how does that path fit versus what we're seeing this week? Okay, so how does that path that we're using, how does that fit versus whatever run game that we are seeing that week? How are we going to fit it up to that? Okay, so like whatever the path may be, let's say you had like an interior, crossfire and you're working out and that A-gap and you're working down to that A-gap and you're working out to that A-gap, that B-gap there and you're working out. Okay, that's the original path. That's the blitz on cans that you work on. Okay, as soon as the wheel starts to go backside into that B-gap, his guard is going to tell him what's going on. If his guard widens, his path widens. If his guard pulls or squeezes, then his path may change because he's an interior part of the blitz. All right, so as an interior part of the blitz, his path might have to change based on what is happening in front of him. All right, if he just blitzes his standard track and they run wide zone or stretch and the guard goes out, his normal path is going to take him back into the A-gap. Right? So when you're pressuring or you're moving, you have to understand that while you start to move, okay, the offense moves as well. So those offensive gaps, when they change, those offensive gaps really only do 3 things. All right, if you think about it. So if you were like a slant or an angle team and you were working this type of movement here, all right? Well, if you get zone, if the 4-eye gets zone coming back to him, as he moves inside, as he gets zone coming back to him, he now has to get vertical up the field because that is now the B-gap. Well, all too often what happens is these kids work on these one-gap movements all the time, and they work on their get-off and their steps and their stance and how they move. That they don't work enough on getting a visual key from the guard. So now when the guard moves and I move, we end up in the A-gap. Right? And then you wonder why certain things, man, we're slanting into that, we're blitzing into it, we're pressuring into it. And then you go back and you watch film, you're not in the right gaps. You're not gap sound. Okay, so those are all things, whether it's D-line slanting or moving, linebackers pressuring, safeties pressuring, every time you move, the offense moves also. So really when we talk about pressures, blitzes, however you want to look at it, all right, we're really just talking about a more aggressive way to play a gap. Okay, so when I look at 5-man pressures for us, all right, I'm looking at a more aggressive way to play a version of an 8-man front. That's really the way I look at it. Okay, now I realize not everybody looks at it that way. I realize that might not be the way it's taught, all right, in college or the NFL. But for me in high school, the way I think about it is when I 5-man pressure, if I play 3 under 3 deep, I'm trying to get to an aggressive version of an 8-man front. Okay, I'm trying to make the offensive line make mistakes. I'm trying to get run through. I'm trying to create TFLs. All right, I'm moving because maybe we're smaller up front. So however you want to look at it, whatever your pressure paths are. So one of the ones we run out of mid front involves the SAM, okay, and we go out and under with the SAM, okay, and then we work the nose depending on the game plan. Well, when we do that, we spin down behind it and we play 3 under 3 deep with those 3 players. Okay, so when you look at the pressure, the path of it, right? When you look at the path of it, what it basically becomes, when you look at the path, is it becomes bare front, all right, and it becomes a version of an 8-man front. So really it's an aggressive way to get to bare front and an aggressive way to get to an 8-man front. Yes, it's not your traditional 4-4 8-man front or some type of 3-4 add-on, nickel from the field, right? Your nickel pressure from the field, drop down behind him and play rip-liz match or whatever you may be. It's not your traditional 8-man front, but it's just a more aggressive way to get to an 8-man front. So all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create movement to get to bare front, to get to an 8-man front. The movement I'm creating is either to protect my players because they're smaller, or to try and get some screw-ups with the O-line so that we can generate TFLs. If I'm playing it as a 3 under 3 deep deal, it's because I don't want to be ultra-aggressive and play it like a bare 1 free or, zero pressures. There's a time and a place for man free. There's a time and a place for zero. But if you're trying to be more aggressive and move, then zone pressures a lot of times are better deals for you because at least if it pops, you can get people on the ground. All right? But in the movement part, what you now have to understand is these gaps are going to move. So I try to tell the SAM, look, when you blitz the B gap, when we do blitzes on cans, all we worry about is making sure, hey, the 4 eyes got to be out, the SAM, you got to come under. All right, well, that's great. As soon as the game starts, if they start running power or counter the other way and that guard pulls, that SAM's path completely changes now. All right, that SAM, there's the worst thing in the world is when you run a pressure like this and they run a gap scheme away and the tackle hinges. And when the tackle hinges, the SAM ends up outside the hinge of the tackle. Well, because when he blitzes on cans, he does this every time. But now when that guard moves, as I start to blitz, my path, as I go through the B gap with the guard, my path actually flattens and either tries to chase the puller or tries to work myself through with the head-up nose. A lot of times you'll draw a double on the nose. So depending on how you're moving the nose, like if you were moving the nose that way and they were trying to double the nose, excuse me, a lot of times if they're doubling the nose, if the SAM comes through the B gap with a puller, if he flattens out and chases, if they're on a double on the nose, the center won't come off to the SAM. So they'll double the nose here, and now with the puller going away, when they go to step and hinge the B gap, if the SAM sees the puller and flattens, he can't get blocked by the hinge and he can't get blocked by the double, and now that's where you might be able to make your play. Okay, so those are all the things that you got to understand when you're moving and you're pressuring. So for us, the last week or so, I put a lot of emphasis on getting our guys to understand how to move and how to play on the move. If it's a guy that's chasing a puller, if it's a gap that's moving on zone or sprint out or wide zone. Because we put so much time and effort into the path, memorizing the path to say, all right, guys, this week when we run all of our pressures, okay, blitz on cans, pre-practice. All right, run that pressure. Okay, good. That's all right. Next pressure. All we really worry about a lot of times when we talk about the path is, are the gaps right? Is the path right? Is the coverage behind it right? Well, once the ball gets snapped, those paths are going to change slightly because as guys move, offensive players move. So, to me, moving can be a very productive way to play defense. We have to move at times because of the bodies that we have. I'm not a big fan of base movement because I think when you move, you either move into things or you move out of things. So I would rather play base defense first and then build movements in to protect us if we can't handle an offense in base defense. But at some point when you pressure or you move, you have to understand that the offense is going to move as well. So how do these pressures and these paths work when offenses start to move? How do they fit when offenses start to move? And the only way that you can see that is if you work it in practice and you take their best runs or passes and you diagram their protections and their run blocking schemes to the movement, and you get your kids to try and fit inside of that movement against that blocking scheme. That's the only way it's going to work, because originally, blitz on cans is great for the path. Talking about the path with players to go, hey, this week when we run America's blitz, it's this path. When we run this blitz, it's this path. Yeah, the initial install and the initial practice of that on air, on cans, on a spacer, that's all good stuff for the path, but the path is always going to be, relative to what the offense is doing. Right? If you look at a D-line that's slanted, that slant always looks the same. As soon as the offense moves, that same slant, if it puts you in the A gap and not the B gap, all right, that's an ineffective movement. You're going to have problems with your run fits. All right, so when you're talking about pressuring, blitzing, I really don't care what you call it. It could be 6-man, it could be 5-man. When you're talking about pressuring, moving, you have to get your players to understand how to play on the move, how to fit things on the move, how to rush the passer on the move and understand protections. All right, how to understand not only where they belong in the path, but how that changes slightly based on what the offense is doing. Okay, so I hope this video helps you guys out. If you struggle pressuring, or if you're not happy with how effective your pressures are, okay, it's one of those deals where you want to be better as a pressure team. Okay, for us, yeah, we make plays when we pressure, but we also bust some things when we pressure. So, when I look at the results of our pressures, yes, they've been effective for us. We're 4-1 right now. We give up about 17 points a game. We just had a shutout last Friday. All right, so we're doing some good things when we pressure, but we're also doing some bad things when we pressure, so I want to be able to clean those up. So I hope this video helps you guys out with pressures, understanding how to get your guys to play through the pressure as the offense moves, because your guys are moving and the other team is moving as well. Remember, if you're not a subscriber, click that subscribe button. All right, turn those notifications on, ring that bell so you know every time we do a video, every time we go on YouTube Live. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you like or don't like the content, the way we provide it. It helps me out. Leave a message or a comment. Any message or comment you leave, I try and get back to. Doesn't have to be positive, doesn't have to agree with me. If you want to disagree and say, Coach, when we blitz, we're gaps only, we don't care about the blocking scheme. If you want to say, hey, Coach, when we pressure, this is how we teach it. Or if you want to say, hey, Coach, we only consider a blitz when we bring one more than the offense has to block. Leave a comment. It's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. I appreciate you guys being here, watching the video. You don't have to agree with everything we do. These things are all strictly my opinion, which is what I think makes the channel a little bit different than some other things out there. This is my opinion on things that we do and things that I've stolen and copied from other people. I'm putting my spin on it and giving you my opinion on it. All right, if you're playing tonight, good luck. If you're playing tomorrow, good luck. Hope your season's going well. Hope everybody's healthy. Hope your team, your coaching staff, your family is healthy and doing well. Remember, you won't play fast, won't play well until you play fast. No edits, so I can't go back and fix that. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. I will see you guys next time.